Hello and welcome to For Fox's Sake. This is the preview with myself, Rob Hayes, and we've got Jonah Towers and Andy Moore with us this evening, looking ahead to Leicester City versus Stoke City on Saturday lunchtime. The first game under the reign of yet another new manager in the shape of Gary Rowett. 14 games he's got to save our season, and that is mostly what we'll be talking about in terms of how does he go about starting to save our season on Saturday lunchtime. Before we get into it, just a nudge in the direction of our website, www.forfoxsake.news. It's there if you're watching horizontally in the bottom right corner. On the website, you can see a deep dive into the stats and the tactics and the numbers behind Gary Rowett's managerial career, courtesy of Andy Moore, who is joining us this evening. Loads more stuff on there as well. A new article coming soon with the viewpoints of Birmingham City and Oxford United reporters and commentators on what kind of manager we're getting for this end of season running, essentially. For foxsake.news, again, is the website. Just a £5 a month to subscribe. All that content that I've just described, loads of coverage of the women's team as well, and a lot of looking back to yesteryear with Where Are They Now features, quizzes galore, you name it, it's on the website for foxsake.news. Never a dull day at Leicester City, because although this podcast is not necessarily about this, we can't have a podcast on Thursday, the 19th of February, without mentioning the fact that Leicester have today appealed the 6-point deduction that was issued to them a couple of weeks ago that initially have contributed to us being in the relegation zone. So that will inevitably come up as well. We're delighted that you can join us live if you're watching live. If you're listening back or watching back, it's great to have you with us as well. If you are not watching live, you can join the conversation on social media. If you are watching live, we'd love to hear your comments this evening, your thoughts on how is Gary Rowett's first game in charge going to go. So let's get into it. Different question to start the show this evening. Jono, will we get a new manager bounce on Saturday?
Hopefully. Yeah. I'm hopeful that we will, actually. He's come in and he's taken training on day one, hasn't he? Even before he did any social media nonsense, he was on the training ground, hopefully drilling the players. So I think he obviously recognises that he's coming in with a massive job to do, with a realistic prospect, I think, of being able to get us out of it. I think, if he gets a good response from the players. So I'm really hopeful that this time around, everyone's sort of woken up a little bit and recognised that we're in a bit of trouble, including, the players included in that. So, yeah, I'm hoping so, that with regard to getting the new manager in, with what's been going on, there's a bit sinking into the bottom three during the last weekend, that hopefully that's woken a few up, and we'll start hopefully clawing our way out of it and start seeing some reaction. So, yeah, I am hopeful.
Andy, it's the number one question on my preview article, which will be live on forfoxsake.news shortly after we finish this show. Are you confident, as Jono is, of a new manager bounce on Saturday?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I'm quite happy with the appointment. I think I just think he will organise us, and I think that's where I think we might start to pick up some results, whether they're wins or whether they're draws. I think a draw at this stage is just climbing the table with some points on the board is going to be good enough at the moment. So I'm quite confident that he'll get us organised, and I think within these 14 games we'll get a few of those elusive clean sheets, because that's his mantra, isn't it? He's very, very defensive, organised. He was a solid, no-nonsense right back for us and many other clubs, obviously. And I just think that I think he's the right appointment. It's a free hit for him, really, isn't it? If he comes in and saves us and actually does well, you would expect in the summer, unless they've got somebody lined up that's elite, that he'll get the job. So it's a free hit for him. It's not going to harm his career. He's done his career so far in management has been predominantly championship teams that he's on the whole kept up, or on the whole improved and made sure that his teams are hard to beat. And I think that's what we really need at the moment. We need to be a team that's hard to beat, and we can pick up points where we're going into places like Stoke, who have been pretty good this season, and get those points. And you never know, we could come away, we get that bounce. You never know, we might get those 3 points. It's just, I'm very happy with it. To be fair, I think it's the best we could have hoped for in this situation.
Yeah, and if the rumours are to be believed, other much more high-profile managers rejected Leicester City because for them it wouldn't be a free hit. Whereas for Gary Rowett, he is, like you say, the type of manager, the job that he does, the approach that he takes, everything kind of works. And although he's not necessarily a sort of Leicester legend as such, he understands a little bit about the football club. Yes, it was a quarter of a century ago that he was here, but it's somebody who at least has some kind of sense of what Leicester City means to thousands of us, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world now. It's interesting because I think we got sort of a half a bounce when Andy King took over as interim manager. There was definitely, although the results wouldn't tell you that, I think there was definitely a shift in energy and an uplift around the place a little bit. But it comes back down to the fact that Andy King has not been coaching at senior level for what, 12 months, 18 months. And maybe I think the club have been very clear that he is staying alongside Gary. So Gary Rowett's the manager, Callum Davidson, another former Leicester fullback, is the assistant manager. And then Andy King is very much in the mix as a first team coach. And I think Gary Rowett will be sensible enough to say, look, Kingy, what did you change to try and get a bit of a tune out of the players? And then here is my tactical astuteness that kept Oxford United in the Championship last season, their first season in the second tier for, I think, 20 odd years. And yes, all right, he got relieved of his duties this time around, and time will tell whether that was a good decision by Oxford or not. At the moment, still not, because Bloomfield's not managed to lift them from 23rd. But I think it's got to be now a combination of, can Rowett help us to stop being so easy to beat, and can Andy King keep doing what he's doing and put his arm around the players, and just sort of the combination of that dragging us over the line, Jono, and getting us out of this situation that we're in.
Yeah, am I right in thinking that Ben Nelson was with him at Oxford last season?
Yeah.
So there may be something in that you know, that he's familiar with the way that he operates. I think I'm quite pleased with the appointment as well, because I think it's going back to just being pragmatic and not having this, it's a clear emergency appointment by the board. But also I think it's moved away from, the idea that somehow that we've got to play some sort of Pep Guardiola style football. I think that there's a realism in the appointment of appointing Gary Rowett, even though clearly he wasn't first choice, because we've been messing around for 3 weeks trying to probably get Enzo back or get some, whoever else that they think that they could probably get in charge. But I think we've ended up with Rowett one way or another, and I think that it's exactly what we need, as Andy said. I've forgotten the question now because I'm rambling. So
I think fine. You've covered it. You're fine.
I think your Hillmaker's harder to beat, and I'm hoping that the link with Ben Nelson and whatnot hopefully pays dividends. So all good.
Yeah, I think he knows a bit about Jordan James from Birmingham as well. He said in an interview as well, so he knows a couple of them. He'll know of a few of the other players as well. When Cifuentes joined the club in the summer, and he sat down and did that full feature-length interview with Radio Leicester, I thought he came across really, really well, and I was quite positive about the season. I mean, you kind of have to be when you get relegated from the Premier League. You have to come into the next season in the Championship with a degree of optimism, in the sense that you should be one of the stronger teams in it. And so I'm cautious now because I've seen what Rowett's had to say, and I like what he's saying as well. But I like it in a slightly different way, because Cifuentes was kind of nice guy, and I don't think Rowett's going to come in and try and ruffle feathers. But what I do think he's going to come in and say, right, these are the standards. This is a very clear game plan, but not necessarily a game plan for when you've got the ball. I think there's a lot of focus these days on what do we do with the ball? What does our shape look like with the ball? Whereas Rowett is almost not old school, because that would suggest that he's out of touch, but it's kind of back to basics, which is exactly what this football club needs at this moment in time, and say, right, if we set up like this when we haven't got the ball, we're going to be difficult to beat. And then he said it himself, Rowett, today, that then he wants the attacking players to not really have to worry about what's happening behind them so much, as long as they know where they should be in terms of that shape. It's the defence's job to do their jobs, which they have not been doing all season. And we're not struggling for goals, have we? Let's be honest. So, Andy, it's finally somebody who's going to start from the back, give them clear jobs, clear messages, and say, look, this is your role, do this role, and don't get ideas above your station, get the ball then to somebody else. And again, in my preview article coming soon on forfoxsake.news, I've said I don't want to keep harping back to 10 years ago, but it's basically how we won the Premier League. The defenders did their jobs. They stopped the ball coming into the box. When it did, they got rid of it. And then they got the ball to more talented players who did their jobs.
Yeah, 100%. And I hark back to your other point as well about the bounce when Andy King came in. And I certainly thought that there was definitely one there, because for that first half against Southampton, we were really, really good. And you look at the FA Cup game as well. For me, I think we were the better side in that FA Cup game for a large portion of it. So there was definitely more energy in that appointment, or in that spell under Andy King. And I just think that now we might get a second one. And I think this is where you look at your point about Cifuentes. You were positive and things like that. Cifuentes had what, 6, 7, 8 months of the season at QPR, but you look at the opposite now. We've got Gary Rowett. He's had over 400 games in the Championship, and I think that's where we're going to see the benefit. He knows this league inside out. He spent the majority of his managerial career, bar Burton Albion, I think, in this league. He is going to be somebody who's, like I've said, going to organise. He's going to make sure that defence, and this is the key, it's that defence. I mean, was it 27, 28 games now that we've gone without a clean sheet? That is just atrocious. And I think he's the right kind of person that's going to come in, sort that out, make us really hard to beat. And like you say, then it's going to be better for the attackers, the forwards, the midfielders to go off and be a bit more creative without that need for worrying, like you said, of the mistakes that are going to come at the back. Now, I'm intrigued to see what side he's going to pick. Like you said, he's had Ben Nelson there. I think obviously that's going to be very, very key. He's going to be so important for us. But again, it's just, we know we've got the same players that have been underperforming, but somebody's got to be able to get a different tune out of them. And I wonder whether that, like you say, with a different style, a bit more, like you say, the old school style possibly. But again, I don't think he's a dinosaur. We're going to get that little bit more out of them. And I think we will get that second bounce. And I think it starts probably on Saturday.
We'll get into what we're expecting in terms of team selection in a couple of minutes, but it's good to have those of you watching along live with us. If you are watching live for the first time, you never commented before, please do. We'll get through as many as we can. Let's go across to some of them now. Tom, who is a regular on the podcast, saying we can score goals, even Pats, and apparently if Gary can sort the back line, we'll be in with a decent chance of survival. So very much echoing what we're saying there. Thank you, Tom, for contributing. Evening to Michael. Good to have you with us, a regular viewer of the show. Deedler saying we chased Danny Roll all last season. He's averaging 2.49 points per match with Rangers. Do you think the club could be waiting for a manager currently employed? It's a possibility, but ultimately, I don't think, in terms of managerially or in terms of playing staff or anything like that, anybody can be thinking anything other than let's make sure we're still playing Championship football next season. Let's have a look what else we've got. Amit Chauhan saying, I worry for any manager coming into a team where so many player contracts are expiring in the summer. How do you motivate them other than saying you're in the shop window? It's an interesting question. And it's clearly a question that Marty Cifuentes couldn't answer this season. and a few managers have struggled in recent years with players on big contracts or no real connection to whether Leicester do well or not. Doesn't matter because they still get paid their salaries. I think that one thing that Gary Rowett has said is that he wants to try to help the players to see this situation as one in which that they can thrive rather than one that restricts them and makes them sort of go within themselves, which we have seen this season. Even when we were 3-0 up against Southampton, as soon as that went to 3-1, there was no belief there that they could win the game. And Rowett, I think, is wanted to give them the tools to do that. Let's see what else we've got. Scott, good evening to you, saying I can say I'm more optimistic now than I have been all season. Not to say we will stay up, but we have more of a fighting chance. Totally agree with that, Scott. And look, we're not saying that the appointment of Gary Rowett will keep Leicester City up as of today, but you're absolutely right. I think he, above most other candidates, is going to enable us to have a fighting chance of doing so. We've got another question. We've got a question here. Scott saying, what I wanted to ask was, with the potential new director of football coming in and having links with the City Football Group, is that an indicator that the club still wants us to play a style of play? Now, I'll answer this, what I think first, and pass it on to Jono and Andy as well before we do get into what the team might look like against Stoke on Saturday, because again, it's a piece of news that is emerging this week that we might be getting a bit closer to having a director of football or a sporting director or a technical director, whatever job title they want to be called this week. I think for me, it is that's not going to affect what happens between now and the end of the season. This is very much a Gary Rowett's in. Gary Rowett plays out Gary Rowett sees fit to get Leicester out of the mess that they're in. And you have to say, yes, it took them 3.5 weeks, but Top and John Rudkin have made the right decision in that sense, not going for a manager whose playing style they're a massive fan of, because it doesn't fit with the playing style that we've played recently. But I think we've talked recently and for a long time now, actually, about the club not seeming to have a direction, not seeming to plan for mid and long-term succession. The fact is, the managerial merry-go-round is the most brutal thing in football, and managers come and go very, very quickly. So ultimately, your recruitment of players has to be a little bit bigger than the manager in some ways, because if you can identify a style of play, you can identify and recruit the players that fit that, then you have to identify the manager that can come in and deliver that style of play as a football club. And I get it's not how anybody of my age or probably older is not how you would have seen football clubs run in the past, but that's the reality of it now. The managers don't stick around for their choice or the club's choice. I think, and I don't know enough about this director of football or any other directors of football to say it with a great deal of certainty, but I think somebody in control of that larger picture to then make an informed decision as to who the manager is to come in and exact that style of play makes more sense to me than bringing in a completely new manager with a completely different style of play. Says, I don't like those players that you spent X amount of £1 million on 6 months ago. I want you to spend X amount of £1 million more on these players. So I think the appointment, whoever it is, would be a positive one in the sense that it would give, hopefully, Leicester a bit more of a mid to longer term direction. Jono, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, more or less spot on with that. I think I have no idea what the credentials are of this new guy coming in. And I think the big worry is that for a lot of us is that he's been brought in and recruited by the people that we don't want to be there, i.e. John Rudkin. So is he going to be the type of character that is a yes man and will basically be directed by John Rudkin? Or is he someone who comes in and has his own mind and wants to actually bring in his own thoughts and his own direction, which I'm hoping is what the club are seeing in terms of that position, because John Rudkin clearly is failing in that director of football role, has done for a number of years, and we need some fresh ideas and fresh thinking. So I've read a few little bits about him. I don't know whether it's Andy, your article that I read about it, that he seems to be a bit of a numbers man. He seems to be, big on his data, and all of that kind of thing. So I don't know if that is true or not, but it'd be interesting to do a bit more digging in the longer term about what credentials this guy's got and what, you know, what potentially he will bring to the club. But I'm hoping that he isn't a yes man. I think that that's going to be a concern for a lot of the fans, that he isn't just going to, you know, say take direction from John Brudkin ultimately. So yeah, we'll find out, I suppose. But in terms of a bigger picture, it's definitely the director of football or the technical director or whatever that would set that agenda based on probably thoughts from the board as well. But I would hope again that he's got his own directorship and his own mind in terms of how he wants to set that up, and be probably a bit more pragmatic, because we can't play like Barcelona, we can't play like Man City with the sort of budgets that we're going to be playing with, and certainly with the sort of players that we've got. So I think, first of all, the thing that bringing Gary Rowett in, knowing the league so well, we've got to play a different style of football in the Championship. And I think we've been saying it all season, is that we can't play this tippy-tappy stuff with the players we've got. And it doesn't really suit this league either. I think you've got to be getting in there and getting stuck in this league. And I'm hoping that's what Gary Rowett will start implementing into the squad from now on. In the longer term, yeah, we all want to see nice, attractive football being played, but ultimately, I don't care if we're winning. Ultimately, that's where I want to be. I want to be a successful club. I want to see some good football along the way. But I think good football comes from winning, and then confidence flows from there, and then good football then comes from the confidence that's ebbing through the side, hopefully, rather than insisting on playing a tippy-tappy style of football that we can't play, and then confidence ebbs away, and we're in a position we're in right now where the football is utter dire. So you can impose a style all you like, but I think it also ultimately comes from confidence and from a successful side. So you've got to build a side around what you've got.
Andy, your thoughts on director of football in terms of a longer term vision at the club?
Again, I think it's a bit of a free hit for the guy coming in. I think that a lot of what he'll do will be dictated by how we do for the rest of this season and what league we're in. So I think that if it's somebody like a Gary Rowett who's managed to keep us up, especially if he does it quite spectacularly and we go on a bit of a run and we're well away from relegation, then I think that he will get the job no matter what. If it's just stayed up by the skins of his teeth, I don't know. And we go back to that comment earlier about are we waiting for a manager that's already in a job? I just can't see that we're going to be taking a manager that's already in a job. One, again, who would want to come to Leicester that's secure somewhere else? So I can't see that happening. So I think what we do for the rest of this season will dictate the style of play that we move forward, because would you want to put a new team together playing the style of football that we've been known for playing these past 5-6 years kind of thing under a man like Gary Rowett who doesn't play that type of football? Or are you just setting him up to fail? As simple as that, really. So for me, whatever happens by the end of this season, then we'll know where we're going to go. And again, the technical director then, along with whoever the manager is, will have a free hit because the majority of the side are out of contract. So it's going to be a lot of new players in this squad next season. So if it's Rowett, we're going to be a hard-to-beat side. It's going to be probably a bit more Route 1. If it's not Rowett, then it's going to be somebody who's probably got a bit of a profile, who's not in work. Let's say I'm not going to name. Well, I'll name a name, but I'm just throwing it out there as a guess kind of thing. Someone like a Stevie Gerrard kind of thing that I can't see him coming here. Don't get me wrong, but that kind of person, an elite name that the club probably think that
could take on a 2 or 3 year project. I think it's going to be
a station. Exactly, and we're not in that situation at all. We're not going to get somebody like him, but that kind of person, I couldn't think of anybody else. But yeah, for me, it's the rest of this season will dictate the style of play that we're going to be playing going forwards, and whoever the manager is. And I would quite happily take someone like a Gary Rowett for 2, 3, 4 years and let's just make ourselves hard to beat and let's start moving forwards rather than backwards.
100%. I mean, that's what I think. I don't care about the style of play. I just want us to be successful and start winning. We're a big team in this division. Let's not forget. And if we go down, I think that'll be a tragedy. So I think let's get the end of the season, then let's see where we go from there.
Yeah, we will get back onto Stoke City versus Leicester City in a couple of minutes, because this is the preview of that game. But obviously, Leicester is the gift that keeps on giving in terms of news at the moment. Very selfish of them to keep giving us these big newsworthy things when all we want to do is talk about the football match on Saturday lunchtime. But also the comments have been coming in from you guys that are watching live, so we've got to talk about what you want us to talk about. And Pete Selby is saying, I'd like to know who appealed first, the Premier League or Leicester City. He's followed that up by saying it might sound arbitrary, but I can see why the club would react to an appeal from the Premier League. But if the club did it first, that seems very dangerous. And
I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I mean, let's just get a couple of other comments from other people before we say what we've got to say on the matter. Michael saying, I don't think they should have appealed. They should have accepted the 6 points. They might now get 12 points if they lose the appeal. There's that. Yeah, there is that side of the argument. Absolutely. Just seeing if there's any more comments in on that. I don't think there are. The rest of them are all footballing comments, which we will get to in a couple of minutes' time. But yeah, it's an interesting one because it's come out today that Leicester are appealing the decision, clearly feeling that 6 points was harsh. And now there's two ways to look at that. One, they've got a phenomenal legal team behind them and they genuinely believe that they can get the points deduction reduced and therefore, without even having to play any football, lift us out of the Championship drop zone. But you could also look at it from the point of view of Pete Selby there and saying, look, if it could have been reactionary to the Premier League to basically try to slow down a process or throw a counterpunch to I mean, the Premier League have been very clear. They want it wrapped up this season. So, 14 games to go. It's not a long time. The Premier League's issue is that they believe Leicester should have been punished with a further points deduction for filing their accounts late. But the tribunal that dealt with it acknowledged that Leicester filed their accounts late, gave them basically a slap on the wrist, but decided it wasn't worthy of further points deduction. The 6 points deduction is to do with the breach of the PSR rather than the late filing. And the Premier League are coming at Leicester from that angle. So it's, for me, really, the fact that we're talking about this now rather than spending the whole time talking about how the new manager is going to set up on Saturday is just more unnecessary noise, Andy, around the football club that has the potential to detract from us trying to stay in the Championship.
I get that point. I do half agree with you. It's a distraction, but like I think Rowett said today, that he's just told the players just to get on with it. Don't worry about that. Leave that for the off the field guys to sort out. And I'm okay with it. I think I've seen that the Premier League won an extra point off us. I think that's what it was. Whereas obviously we're fighting it for saying that it's been quite harsh, and I'm okay going for it, but because I'm confident probably that Rowett's going to get us out of it. And maybe it's wishful thinking from me that and that extra point could be the difference. But and if it is, I'll hold my hands up and say so. But I'm okay with them going after it. Like I say, they do seem to have a really good legal team behind them who would be advising them correctly as what they interpret it to be. I've had a little look at the PSR thing myself today because, again, it's just something that you just don't always understand kind of thing. So I tried to dig down into it ahead of an article that I've got coming out tomorrow. And it's very interesting, and it's something that I think that there is a chance we could win it, and there's quite a good chance that we might get some of those points back. So I don't see the issue where we're going to get 12 points and it's going to increase. It's just not going to happen because that's not one. It's not what the Premier League are going for. And I think if they did try and do 12 points, it's just going to end up in legal issues for God knows how long. And like I say, the Premier League don't want that. So for me, a point, if it's going to be one more, I'm happy to probably risk that point, but to try and get all our points off, or at least maybe 3 points off, which will put us in a better position. So I'm all right with it, and I'm probably in the minority. I appreciate that, and I just don't think it will affect. I think the manager has said he'll come in and just forget about it. Let's just concentrate on what we got to do on the pitch. So I think that kind of mantra is good, and I think that go for it and see what we can get out of it.
Jono, before we get your thoughts, James Turrell, a regular on the show as well, has commented saying, "Has Jono become a Bond villain?" Owen, I think to the seat that you've got on the backdrop there, I'll let you explain that very briefly before you get into your thoughts on the ongoing battle between Leicester City and the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, the situation that I'm in right now is that we're actually away visiting my wife's family over in Hungary. So I'm actually in the spare room of a smallish house, trying to find a quiet corner to help the recording. But there's chaos going on outside with the kids going to bed. So I found the quietest corner I could find, which is, different to our backdrop at home, to be honest. So that's the reason why I probably look the way I do. And the lighting in here is a bit harsh. So yeah, anyway, whatever. The question regarding the appeal, I'm in two minds. I'm split about it, to be honest. If it is the situation that the Premier League have come after us, and then we lodged an appeal to say, to counteract that, then I haven't got a problem with that, to be honest. I think that's the club doing what they need to do to try and battle our corner, which is what I would hope that they would be doing. Having said that, taking the 6 point deduction, I think, is what we probably deserved. And we probably got off lightly, frankly, based on the way that the club has carried on in the last few years. So I haven't got a problem with the club, to be honest, fighting our own corner and seeing what can happen. If there is a risk of us getting more points put on top of what we've already got, then that is a bit of a gamble. Having said that, I think the Premier League, frankly, should leave us alone now with the 6 points and go after Man City and Chelsea. What are they doing with those guys, frankly? So stick a finger up to the Premier League and say, what about those guys? Leave us alone. You've got your 6 points off us. Go and do some business with the other people that have apparently broken the rules, because they seem to only want to go after the small fish. That is the wider issue, isn't it? Absolutely. And I'm sure if and when a decision is made at some point this season, we'll dedicate an entire podcast to it, not 5 minutes on the preview. We are running at overtime. We try to keep the preview to half an hour. We're in stoppage time, if you like. We will get on to talking about Leicester versus Stoke in a minute. Just want to see what else people watching along live are saying. Scott saying the fact that we've challenged the points deduction worries me. I appreciate the club could win the case, and we all hope that happens, but potentially going to a deduction of 20 points will be devastating. I have no idea where he's put the number 20 from there. I think you're doom mongering a bit there, Scott, but thank you for getting in touch anyway. Michael, another doom and gloom on the comments this evening, saying if we get some points back, I think we'll still be relegated. That's not necessarily our viewpoint here on the show between myself, Jono, and Andy this evening. Deedless also saying it should be all or nothing, not a points deduction. We are either right or wrong. Now, I think the argument from Leicester is, yes, we've broken some of the rules, but your punishment was too harsh. And the Premier League are not necessarily appealing that 6 points was not enough. For that bit, theirs is a separate argument about the lateness and the delay in submitting the account. So there's a lot more to unpick there. And as Andy said, on forfoxsake.news, there'll be a massively in-depth article going live on that tomorrow. So something to get your teeth into tomorrow on forfoxsake.news. I'm just having a look at what else we've got. We need to say hello to Eddie this evening.
Eddie, regular contributor to our social media discussion groups. You can find us on Facebook or on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, basically any form of social media, you can find us there. Eddie watching the show saying we also have Callum Davidson, who would be great help sorting out the defence. Agreed. So let's have a look at that quickly. And what I might do, actually, rather than argue the toss about about shape and personnel, we're fairly sure that Rowett's going to play a 4-2-3-1 because he's never played anything else in his life, really. And that is a formation that, rightly or wrongly, the Leicester players are very much used to this season. So what I want to do, Jono and Andy, because I don't want to go too far over the time, but I do want your opinions on this. I'm going to pick a couple of key positions and give you this player or this player. And I want you to tell me who you think it is. If you're absolutely desperate to give me a 10 or 15 second sort of backup to that, fine. But let's try and do this a little bit pacey. So first of all, in goal, Begovic brought in for the last 2 league games, but Stolarczyk reinstated for the FA Cup game against Southampton. So Jono, you first. Begovic or Stolarczyk in goal for Saturday?
Begovic for me.
Andy?
If you read my articles, Begovic for me.
I knew that'd be the answer, and I think it's Begovic for me as well. We've talked about the fact that we need that experience in there. Okay, I think Gary Rowett would be an extremely brave man to drop the club captain. So I think Ricardo starts at right back. We've only got 2 fit centre backs, so Okoli and Nelson are there. So the next question is at left back, and that is Luke Thomas or Victor Christiansen. Andy, you first this time.
I'm going Christiansen, but I disagree on your centre back.
Go on.
I think I'd play a Luco.
All right, that's what you do. What would Rowett do?
I think he might play a Luco.
Okay, a Luco at centre back with Nelson.
Yeah,
interesting. Jono, thoughts on the defence then? Thomas or Christiansen at left back, and what do you think to Andy's comments about a Luco maybe coming in instead of Okoli? I mean, it can't be any worse than Okoli, can he?
No, I mean, I think left back, I would welcome back Victor Christiansen, to be honest. Luke Thomas needs to basically sit on the bench for a bit, in my view. Not to say Victor Christiansen is any better, but I'd probably bring him back in if he was fit and give Thomas a break.
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's move into midfield. It's 3 or 4 players for the 2 central midfield roles, depending on how you look at it. And this comes into Scott's question that he's asked watching live on YouTube. Scott saying, would the panel be okay with playing Winks until the end of the season? We've talked about Winks a few times on previous shows. So I guess the question then is, this time, not necessarily your choice of 4, really. It's Winks, Skip, Aribo and Page. Of those 4, which 2 start in your midfield too, Jono?
Aribo and... I'd play 3 across the middle, frankly, but I'd put Skip, Winks, and Aribo in. Because I'd be playing probably 3-5-2, but that's just me. So I'd have been going 3 at the back with packing the midfield.
I guess you could, in Rowett's formation as well, if he didn't want Mukasa from the start, could play Aribo as the most advanced of a midfield 3. Andy, your thoughts on central midfield?
I haven't seen enough of Aribo, so I'm going Winks and Skip. I just think Winks is key for me. He really is.
Agreed. And especially if we're talking about, can the defenders win the ball back and give it to somebody who can play a forward pass? Harry Winks is absolutely a man there. I would agree with that. So if you are watching live, you've got a minute or so to get your score predictions in. I'm not going to go further up the pitch because I do think that it's going to be Mavididi and Fatu on the wings as long as Fatu's knee's all right.
Who's in the 10?
Well, it depends. If you're going with Jono, then Aribo plays in the 10. If not, then it's got to be Mukasa with Decordova-Reid's not available until the next game, I don't think. So he's still suspended, unless you've got something else you want to offer up, Andy.
No, I agree for that, but I'm interested when Bobby comes back, whether they're playing Mukasa or Bobby. I think Bobby's had a bit of a been dealt harshly with by the fans a little bit. I think he's been all right this season, but yeah, I don't know. Again, I've not seen much of Mukasa, and I didn't think massive amounts of him in that game last week. But jury's out a little bit, I think. So it could be. I don't mind either, to be fair.
Goal and an assist in the league game against Southampton, though, on his first start. So there's flashes of a quality player there, absolutely. Right, let's get into score predictions and what we think is going to happen. Just we always forget about the opponents on these preview shows. I say we, it's me, I'm in charge of them. But Stoke City are not in great form. They were flirting with the playoffs probably 6 weeks ago, but they have not won in 6 championship games now. Their form looks, if you look at the last 5 games, it looks as bad as ours. And we're in the relegation zone, and they're tumbling into that sort of condensed mid-table pile up of reasonably big teams, let's be honest. So their form's not great at all. Neither is ours. So we're not expecting a classic, but let's just wrap up with 30 seconds or so of how you see the game going on Saturday, Jono, and score prediction or any Leicester players to stand out for you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a point, I think, but if we lose in any way, shape, or form, that I think we need to get something from this game. Ultimately, I think we could sneak it with a 2-1 or something, but I'd take a 1-1 or even a 0-0. I'd take, frankly.
Clean sheet. We love a mention of a clean sheet on the show.
Yeah. So as long as we, if we lose at all, and even if we lose like 1 goal, but if we lose by more than 1 or 2 or 3 goals, then I think this is a pivotal game as to whether we can see Rowett working or not. I think he needs to come in and hit the ground running with this squad and get a performance from day one. And I think that is what we've got to see. So I think we'll come out with a sneaky 2-1 based on the fact that they're in crap form as well. So that's what I'm going with.
We'd take a sneaky 2-1. Let's have a look at some of the comments coming in. Michael saying 1-1 and Eddie saying Leicester to win 2-0. Like the optimism, Eddie. Thank you. And Tom also saying, my head says a loss given our form, but my heart says a scrappy 1-0 and a clean sheet. There we go. It's got a second mention, the clean sheet. Here we go. Andy, your predictions for Saturday?
I'm going to go with Eddie and go 2-0. I really am. I'm quite confident. I don't know why. I just feel really confident. But again, it's interesting with Stoke City and Robbins there. If he's suddenly under pressure and he possibly loses his job, is he a candidate for the summer? And things like that. So, because again, he's another manager like Rowett who's got so much experience in that championship, which might be what we need. But yeah, I'm going 2-0. I just think that Rowett will set us up to be hard to beat. And like you say, there's always goals in it. So I'm going to go 2-0 with a Fatuwu, and I'm going to go a Daka goal.
Daka to score and a clean sheet, you madman. And also, what you're doing as well is predicting the longer term future there. Leicester beat Stoke on Saturday. That brings about the end of Mark Robins' tenure at Stoke City. Rowett leaves in the summer. Robins comes in. Here we go. Look you heard it here first. We'll clip this up, Andy. We'll keep this one of the For Fox's Sake archives, and we'll wheel it back out when it's time. Yeah. I am going to back Tom's prediction, saying I'm going to go for a 1-0. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think we're going to have to, and Gary Rowett said this himself, that we're going to have to learn how to suffer without the ball. And I think we need to see the players dig in. We need to see bodies on the line. We need to see determined defending. And if we do that, there's absolutely every chance that in some quick counters or with the quality that we possess in the forward areas, apart from up front, then there's definitely a goal in there. So I'm going to go for 1-0. Apologies, we've done nearly a half of football, and this is the longest preview show that I've ever hosted. And now Pete Selby, I'm surprised he's not already commenting saying, look, you've gone over your half an hour getting his little watch out. But in fairness, we had a lot to talk about. New manager, new battle with the Premier League in terms of the points deduction, and loads of great comments as well. So thank you to everybody who has watched along live with us this evening, and thank you to you if you're listening back to the recorded podcast, or you're watching back at a later date because you couldn't make it live. Next time, don't miss a show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get a notification as soon as we go live, and you can watch and join in live. Just one more mention of the website, for foxsake.news. couple of articles dropping there in the next sort of 12 to 24 hours in terms of previewing the Stoke game, looking more in depth at the financial side of things with Andy, and getting the thoughts of Oxford and Birmingham City reporters on Gary Rowett, the new Leicester City manager. So loads of very current stuff over at forfoxsake.news. We'd appreciate your support there. And it does mean that we can keep bringing you these podcasts completely free of charge. We've all predicted a win for Leicester to kickstart the new manager bounce on Saturday. Let's hope it happens. Leicester to beat Stoke City on Saturday lunchtime.